Hey everybody, how's it going? So today I'd like to do a video about a community post that I made a few days ago regarding tariffs and how they were affecting my business and how it was a bit of a surprise the manner in which it affected my business when it came to importing microscopes and other equipment that I sell. This is one of the few videos I do where I'm going to politely ask that you either don't watch the video or that you watch the entire thing. Because if you don't watch the entire thing, you're going to miss out on points that are important. And when it comes to anything regarding politics or economics, what my experience has been on YouTube is that the moment people hear certain trigger words, they start typing ravenously, their blood pressure and pulse goes up, they interject, because you may assume that my position is something that it is not, or you may assume that my position is based on something that it is not actually based on. Do me a favor, hear me out, hear how it affects my business, and hear how it is I came to learn that the tariffs were something that were different than what I thought they were based on the government's own website, and we'll go from there. So, first things first, let's get into how any of this affects my business. I used to use Amazon affiliate links in my description for all the tools that I had before I had any sort of store.rossmangroup.com. I felt kind of bad about the fact that I was incentivizing people to make purchases off of Amazon, even though I do make money from those Amazon affiliate links, just because of my own experiences with Amazon and how Amazon has dealt with a lot of their employees and also other sellers. So as a seller on Amazon back in 2011 and 2012, I had terrible, awful experiences as a seller on Amazon, and I did a video about it that you can see here. I had people that would purchase a screen that was for a MacBook. They would say it doesn't work. They'd file an A to Z claim, and I would get back a screen that had an HP part sticker on it because they took it out of an HP laptop. That person was clearly sending me a screen from their broken bin, and there was no recourse for me. And not only was there no recourse for me, but this kind of stuff would actually get counted against me as I sold the customer an improper item. I had that happen a lot of times, and I've had cases where somebody buys something, they get it on Friday night, they send a message Saturday morning, on Sunday they file their A to Z claim, on Sunday they win their claim, on Monday when I'm back in the office, because back in 2011, I actually tried to keep it to 5 days a week. I know, it's a pipe dream, but I actually did try to keep it to 5 days a week. On Monday, I'd read their complaints, and I'd realize they bought an N156B6 LOB when they actually needed an N156B3 LOB. They bought the B6 because it was cheaper, but they needed a fluorescent, not an LED backlight. So it wasn't even my fault, but I digress. I didn't like that. The second thing I didn't like about Amazon were a lot of the New York Times articles that I was reading on how it is that what it is like to be an employee there, the employee experience, the lack of air conditioning, the pressure put on people that are making close to minimum wage, working in unair-conditioned warehouses. And the third thing, above all, that kind of pushed me off the cliff was what they did to a lot of the independent resellers. So I did an interview with John Bumstead that you can read or listen to, I should say, over here. And this was an interview with somebody who would purchase en masse and refurbish and then resell Apple products. He dealt with laptops anywhere from $100 to $150, really looking at old budget stuff. And he, along with many other sellers, were kicked off of Amazon. Amazon put into place a new policy whereby the only people who could sell refurbs on Amazon were people that were anointed by Apple to do so. Anybody that wasn't anointed by Apple to do so was no longer going to be allowed to sell refurbs or use products on their marketplace. And at that point I said, okay, it's one thing to treat me or other sellers I know like crap. Now you're just giving a middle finger to my industry. I don't want to have these affiliate links for valuable items. So I started selling things like the Crest Ultrasonic Cleaner, the Quick 861DW. Even though I have a 700 square foot store, from principles alone, I did not want to continue affiliate linking on Amazon. It makes me money. I'm a small business that's growing. You know, again, as I've mentioned in past videos, there ain't a damn bank in the world that wants to give me a business loan, and the only investors I've met have met me with terms like, yeah, stop teaching people for free on YouTube or delete those videos, and we'll give you an investment. So I am open to taking money when I can take money, but I am a grown-up, but I do want to put myself on a path to being free of using these types of links and free of dealing with companies that I don't want to deal with as time goes forward. So I have a roadmap for myself whereby, which I would say 12 to 18 months from now, I would like to be Amazon link free. That's what I'm going for. So I was selling Crest Ultrasonic Cleaners that I used to sell, I used to affiliate link to in the store. Quick 861DW I used to affiliate link in the store. Flux, solder paste, all the stuff that I used to affiliate link to, I would like to sell here, even though this is a 700 square foot space that has 12 people working in it. It's not realistic, but I have my principles, and I do silly things for them every now and then. And one of the items so what I did is I went through my Amazon reports, and I was looking for the items that sold the most, figuring I'm going to start at the top and go downwards. And another one was the microscopes that I sell. Now, let's just go over how this affected me when it came to the Quick 861DW hot air rework station. I used to purchase that for between $180 to $190, and then the price went up to where it cost $220 to $230. This is not including shipping, of course, so the shipping would be added on extra. Now, that price increase was a price increase that affected me because I was reselling them, therefore my price had to go up. This did not affect me in the same way that it affected me with purchasing microscopes. When I was purchasing hot air rework stations, I was buying them from Quick that had an office in America. So the tariff was already built into the price of the item. I would email them, they would send me an invoice or tell me here's how much you have to pay, and that included the tariff in it. That's different from when I import something, I pay a price to buy it, and then I get billed for the tariff later. So I knew what it was. Now, there are two aspects of the Quick 861DW that have to be taken into account when people talk about tariffs. The first is going to be the incentive to buy or manufacture anything like that in America. So let's just go over the alternatives. So many people have said, purchase something that's made or built in America. It's what you should be doing. So let's go over this. Now, I did quite a bit of research before doing this video on the Quick, and one of the things that I noticed is that the Quick, again, I told you the price I buy it for, and you can see that if you want to buy it from a place that's scraping the bottom and Walmarting people, it's $264. If you want to buy it from me, it's $289.99. You got an idea of what it costs. The cheapest station that I could find, not even something that's made entirely or designed entirely in the USA, just like assembled in the USA, is this Pace over here, the ST300. It's $1,226.02. Now, I don't want it to appear like I'm crapping on Pace. Pace is a company with a long-standing reputation for quality goods and quality service. That being said, while I respect Pace, we're talking about an item that blows hot air. You do need to have a good hot air blower, and I talk about that in videos where I'm discussing the HAKKO FR801 and the Weller WHA900 and why I prefer them to $50 IOE trash. You do need a good hot air station. A good hot air station is going to be necessary so that you don't slow roast the board and kill your chips before anything gets soldered on, or so that you can actually remove things from the board in a timely fashion. Or let's say you're working on an iPhone where you got like a TriStar chip like on the iPhone 5 right next to the CPU. You need accurate hot air. But at the end of the day, let's be real here. We're talking about a device that blows burning air. This isn't rocket science. And you have the cheapest item I can get in America is $1,226.02. Now, when we talk about functionality, power, and durability, when it comes to durability, I have had 3 people receive a station where they at some point had to email me and say they had an issue with it. We've been selling the Quick now for 2 years. 2 years, 3 people have had an issue with it. And I don't even know if that was a user-created issue, but 3 issues total, and mine still works. All the ones at the store here still work. So for durability, since again I've replaced 0 heating elements to these since I bought them, I would say that this is just about as durable as the Pace. Now there's another aspect, power. This station is almost twice as powerful as this Pace that we have over here, even though it costs a lot less money. The third are features. So if we were to look at features, you can see that on the front of the Quick Hot Air Station, it has the channel 1, channel 2, channel 3. It has presets, the same way you have on an FM radio in a car, whereas the Quick does not have that functionality. It just has 2 knobs. So if I want to have iPhone chip removal, MacBook chip, and then MacBook big chip like SMC or MUX removal, I could have my different presets. So the Quick Hot Air Station is less than 1/4 the price of the Pace, more powerful. It's got more nozzles available for it. You can get a 12.7 millimeter angled nozzle for it, and it's very, very durable. Now, when people say that a tariff is going to incentivize people to purchase American or create American jobs in manufacturing, I want people to be employed in America, and I want to promote American companies. The problem here is that, in my opinion, that type of tariff is not the way that you're going to go about it, because if we're talking about a time from 30 to 40 years ago where the price difference between Chinese goods and American goods was like this, then a tariff that's about this would work. But in 2019, after 20 or 30 or 40 years of this, when you have a tariff that's this, and the price difference in the Chinese and the American goods is this, it's going to be very difficult for the tariff to incentivize people to purchase American, especially when that American good, on many available metrics, is not actually as good as the cheaper Chinese device. In every way, shape, and form, I would prefer to have a Quick than a Pace, even if they cost the exact same amount of money. I have the dexterity and the nozzles that are available to me, and I got my presets. It's just a little bit more convenient. And the fact that it costs 25% as much, That's great. Now, the next thing that I feel that is important to bring up here is when it comes to creating American jobs. So one of the things that kept coming up in that comment section was you don't want to, what about employing people in America? What about, being patriotic? And one of the things that I think is patriotic is creating American jobs, which is one of the very reasons that for the past 5 years I've tried to dump all the contents of my brain onto a YouTube channel, onto a Vimeo channel that I put all this information out there. I label all the information. I attach keywords to it. I've taken the time to categorize all these videos in boards.rossmangroup.com by model of the board and also issues so that it's really, really simple for anybody who wants to get into our field to get into our field. If you look up, you'll see that there's a video by somebody who started watching these videos when he was 16. He rented a space in California. Rent's not exactly cheap there. And he opened his own store, which to this day is profitable and successful repairing these products off of information that he's learned from these videos. And there's also another post that I'll show you here. I get this type of stuff literally every day, where somebody was able to wean their way off of welfare and get themselves a job working on stuff that's very similar to what I work on from watching these videos. I have a sense of pride in creating jobs. So when it comes to the value judgment, I'm going to save the jobs of the people selling an inferior product for 4 to 5 times the price, maybe 20 or 30 jobs at that warehouse, or I am going to create 10,000 or 100,000 or 200,000 jobs in independent repair from people who watch this channel and are able to use those tools to do something with it. I'm almost always going to go for the latter versus the former. I don't see this as a zero-sum game, nor do I see this as simply a question of whether or not we're creating or disincentivizing jobs in general when we're talking about a tariff on a particular good or product. So let's just say we're talking about the Quick and the Microscope right here. So let's say let's pull the numbers out here. Let's say you got 20 or 30 people that are putting together that $1,200 hot air station without presets that's less powerful than mine at the factory. And then let's say you've got maybe 100,000 people that want to get into independent repair. I care more about those 100,000 people that want to get into independent repair but are less likely to if you add $1,000 to the cost of doing business than I do the 20 or 30 people at that particular factory. Acting like there's only one pool of people who are affected by whether a tariff exists or not is, in my opinion, being a bit disingenuous, because I think you also do need to think about A, the people who are going to be creating jobs when they use this tool, and B, the people that they're going to be servicing. So somebody who purchases a microscope and a hot air station that they otherwise would not have been able to afford if they had to pay $4,000 for their microscope and $1,200 for their hot air station, that's a job that was just created. Now, when that individual fixes 30 people's machines in his town that he otherwise would not have fixed because he wouldn't have opened his business, now we also have to think about the 30 customers he had that may have otherwise went to Apple. Maybe 10 of those customers would have mailed it in. Maybe the other 20 of them wouldn't have even bothered when they realized there was nobody doing it, and they would have just wound up saying screw it and sending it to Apple. Now you have those people that now have a machine that works again, where that otherwise wouldn't have had a machine that works again. There are many elements to this, and I don't like the idea that the only job that we're looking at is the individual at that manufacturing place making that one hot air station or making that one microscope, when we could be looking at the tens or hundreds of thousands of people that would be using these products if they could afford them. And now I remember what it was like back in 2008 when I decided to get into this business. I was dead broke. I barely had $268 to my name. I did not have a lot of money for parts and tools. I bought used. I begged. I borrowed. I used what I could, and I saved up every penny that I could until I could buy tools that would do their job. When it came to something like a Crest Ultrasonic Cleaner, which was really going to make a difference to me, I decided to live in a place that was a complete and utter rat-mouse-infested shithole just so that I could afford it. I know damn well what type of sacrifice has to be put in if you want to have good tools to do your job, which is precisely why I think that it's very important that if we have tools that exist that are good quality at a good price that do their job, that I'm not going to denigrate those tools when they are making the industry that I love, that I enjoy, that helps people more available to get into than it would have been otherwise. I like the fact that our industry has a low barrier to entry if you have a brain, and that if you have a brain, you can take those brain cells and you can convert them into money. Well, I shouldn't say convert because that implies that you're losing them, which really only happens if you deal with the customers that walk into my store on a daily basis. But I digress. That's for another video. I like the fact that this industry allows you to convert your brain cells or to take your intelligence or your hard work or your persistence and turn it into money easier than you can in a lot of other industries. And I don't like the idea that there are individuals that are saying, no, keep that bar as high as you can. Keep people who are broke from being able to get into this industry so that a few companies that make a product that is really, really expensive, that's not really doing much innovation, can make more money. That's not an argument that I agree with, and it's not an argument that rings true with my experience or with the facts that I've presented thus far. If somebody is broke or they're on welfare and they're looking for a way to climb out of that pit, you're making it a little bit harder for them by saying they need to only purchase these products. That's a lot of people that are going to remain poor. Whereas if you have products that are available like these, like an affordable microscope or an affordable hot air station, that means that people are going to be able to start climbing that first rung, get out of poverty, actually start working on things without having to say, because again, if a lot of the people that get into this business, they're people that want to leave their crappy current job. They don't have a lot of savings. They start doing this on the side, and you're more likely to take up a side gig when you're able to buy a $280 hot air station versus a $1,200 one. Now let's get into the scope itself. So this is a scope that I was interested in selling because this microscope over here is different than the one that I had been affiliate linking to for a long time. So I bought this particular microscope around 2014 as an upgrade to the one that I had, and they did something silly. A lot of these manufacturers did something silly around, I don't know if it was 2017 or so, or somewhere around there, whereby the trinocular port that the camera goes into, they changed the adapter that they ship with it, but they also changed the mount over here so that I couldn't even fit the good adapter onto those microscopes. So I had been linking to a microscope that was not as good as the one that I was using, even though it was, for all intents and purposes, the same exact model. So I tried my best to find microscopes that would do what it is that I wanted them to do. And I actually put in effort to work with some companies that made their microscopes outside of China, and they essentially ignored me. So let me just find a link over here to one. So let's just check this out. I'm going to open this in my browser. So this is a video I did in 2005 asking a different company to please make a microscope that would be something I could resell or use. I made another plea around 2017 for the exact same thing. I've made non-public but email queries to many different vendors, and I was not able to find something that does what this does at the quality level that this does with the piece that this has from any other company. I found one company that sold them at a good price, and it just so happened to be in China. They sold this microscope with an adapter piece that this adapter piece over here is the same piece that I have on mine, and it also has the mount piece in the microscope that's the same as what was on mine that I got in 2014. Actually cost additional $10, about 10 or 20 bucks to get the good piece versus the piece that makes everything look really blurry, because the piece on the older microscopes that I was talking about did not make the image look blurry or have these the chromatic aberrations or the vignetting or any of that junk. Difference at 10 to 20 bucks. So I made a post saying I finally found them, and I am going to sell these, and I am going to price match Amazon on the microscope. So I'm not making a bunch of money here, but I wanted to be able to supply the exact same thing that I'm using so that if people wanted to do videos the same way I did, their videos came out looking the way mine look and not the crappy way that many of the videos using that newfangled, cheaper horseshit look. So I found it, and I wanted to sell it. Now, this is one of the areas where I was actually wrong in my original post. So in my original post, I said one of the issues with having done my research on the pricing of these before tariffs and then implement the idea after. This will go down as one of the top 10 dumbest things I ever did in business. Now, one of the things I disagree with my initial statement there is I took 100% of the fault rather than a portion of the blame. So why is it that I'm now willing to take less of the blame for the fact that this happened rather than all of it? That's a great question. Now, here's one of the issues that I have when it comes to free market versus government and the rules that people get to follow. Let's say that on my website, I said that an iPhone 7 screen repair was $80. On the homepage, it said $80. On the general price list, it said $80. And on some random FAQ page, it said $130. And a customer came in, and I told them it would be $100, and I fix your phone, it's going to be $130. And they go, wait, your website says $80. I would have to then say, okay, show me where it says $80, and if they show me it says $80, I would then have to apologize and give them that screen repair for $80 rather than $130 because I was in the wrong. Let's look at how that works when it comes to the government, shall we? So I actually did do my research on this, and I did quite a bit of research. Now, granted, again, I'm not an exporter, I'm not an importer. I am just a small business owner that just so happens to do occasional import-export. But so I did as much research as I could, and here's what I came to. Now, if we look here on dataweb.usitc.gov/tariff, you will see that it does not list a 25% duty on the tariff code that corresponds to these microscopes. So it's 9011-1040 is the tariff code. And you'll see there's a 20% here for non-NTR status. So here we're talking about like North Korea and stuff like that. But for the most part, these are 0%. This does not apply here. Now, because again, China is not in the list, non-NTR. Now, if we take a look at another section, so this is dataweb.usitc.gov. If we look at hts.usitc.gov, this is another .gov website where it's going to list duties and tariffs and so on and so forth. You will see that over here, again, it does not list that. It only lists that 20% for non-NTR nations that China is not a part of. Now, if we continue, the only place that I was able to then find after the fact that this was listed is on some law firm, customs law website. Yeah, this is a law firm's website over here, and they're listing the duty as 25%. I actually had to go to a website outside of the government's website in order to find out that this was the case. This was the website that was linked to me by a customs broker when I had sent them links to this. How is it that this website is so poorly run, even though, again, it is a government website, don't have the highest of expectations there? How is it so poorly run that when I look in two separate places to see if there's a tariff, it still doesn't tell me that there's a tariff even when there is one? And apparently there are acting directors of the organization rather than directly appointed, here, this is your job, director of the organization. And I will put a link to it down below. We have various officials acting as commissioner for 26 months, and as it says over here, there's a revolving door of non-Senate confirmed acting leaders. So if on a regular basis you were changing up the person who ran my business, and that person knew that they were not going to be the definitive leader of my business, would they do the same job that, let's say, I would as the official leader or president of my business? And this is something that really fundamentally bothers me when there's a difference in the set of rules applied to the free market people rather than the government people. If I had my website advertise different prices for a different service, you bet your ass there would be people calling the Department of Consumer Affairs, one-star Yelp reviewing, screaming in the store until I gave them the lower price because it was my fault that my website is wrong. But that's not the way it works when it comes to government. The next thing to get to, since there were many people there that were espousing conservative views or pro-Trump views that thought that I was immediately crapping on them for their entire set of political views. Again, if you are pro-Trump or conservative, I'm not patting you on the back. And I'm not shitting on you either. I tend to leave conservative as well, even if I'm not particularly loyal to any one politician. But there's a couple of things that I would like to bring up here regarding regulation and taxation. One of the things that Trump had talked about many times over the course of his campaign was the fact that the regulations were a nightmare. There's too many of them. It's too confusing. The tax code is a nightmare. It's too confusing. We need to simplify this so that you could do it on the back of a napkin. Now, that even if you are somebody who's pro-tariff, even if you disagree with everything that I've talked about regarding job creation, regarding how taxes incentivize people to make their purchases or incentivize people to manufacture, let's say you disagree with me on all of that. I think one thing that we could agree on is the fact that if there is a tariff, it should be easy to find out if there's a tariff. We shouldn't be in a situation whereby I go to several parts of the government's own website and it says that there's no tariff, but then I go to some private law firm's website and I'm able to easily see that there's a tariff, and then another law firm then links me to some ridiculously close to impossible to find section of the government's website that says, oh yeah, by the way, this has a tariff on it, and we added it after the fact, and just forget about all those other sections of our website. It should be easy to tell if the tariff is 25%, 5%, 0%, or 100%. Regardless of what you think that tariff should be, don't you think it should be easy for business owners to be able to find out if that tariff actually exists? And if we are for things like lower taxation, if you believe that taxation removes an incentive to do something in some area of business, then what do you think a 25% fee is going to be, particularly when I don't actually know if it's even a fee that exists or doesn't exist because there's no concrete way for me to figure it out. Am I more likely to go through my list of tools and find more things that I can buy or import, or am I just going to say screw it? Or worst case scenario, maybe I just say screw it. This website is so terrible, I'm going to assume that everything I import has a 25% tariff unless proven otherwise, and I'm just going to raise the prices to the consumers on all those items because I don't have time to do this. I don't have time to screw with this. I don't have money to lose potentially listing items at certain prices, having people pre-order them, receiving them, and realizing that the rate that they told me is incorrect. This is something that is going to cause a lot of people to say, you know what, screw it. It's not worth the hassle. I'm either not going to do it or I am going to do it, but I'm just always going to pass this 25% on to the consumer because I can't trust this website to give me accurate information. Now, the last thing that was mentioned were, Lewis, why are you doing this? You could just get, you could apply for a customs exemption. Why don't you just go through this process and apply for an exemption? Well, applying for an exemption is something that you can do. It's not guaranteed that it's going to work, but it is something that I could do. The thing is that it takes time. It takes time to research it. It takes time of filling out forms. And above all, at some point, I'm guessing that, like anything, whether you're applying for a liquor license or whether you're applying for an exemption from customs, it's going to take a little bit of clout. Now, one of the other things that was discussed during the campaign in 2016 was the fact that the elites or the powerful hold all of the power, and it's going to be returned to the people. Who do you think has more time, more resources, or more ability to get a customs exemption? Amazon? Lewis. Amazon, billions of dollars, tens of thousands of employees. Lewis, 12 employees, stays at work until 1 or 2 in the morning every day, and has bags under his eyes from all the work that he has to do. Who do you think is more likely to successfully get their customs exemption? Amazon or me? There are many people that are on the conservative or are on the Trump side that argue that more regulations and more taxes or more complex regulations and taxes are going to damage the small business owner or the sole proprietor more than they're going to damage the corporations. If you believe that to be true, then who do you think that this type of thing is going to hit worst? Who do you think is going to have an easier time getting an exemption to this type of tariff? Amazon or me? And if I'm going to have a harder time getting an exemption to that tariff, who do you think is going to have a higher price? Amazon or me? Who do you think is going to be able to get the profit from selling that item? Amazon or me? Who wins? The elite or the small business? Who does this hurt more? The elite or the small business? It's something to think about. In my opinion, it's going to hurt me more because there's a lesser likelihood of me getting an exemption to this than anybody else. So how does that affect me? Well, I was expecting to get a bill of somewhere between $64 to $100-something, and I got a bill for about $1,100 when I imported all of these. I did this as a pre-order. So one of the things I did is a few days before it was expected to come in, I had a pre-order out for it. It's quite a bit of work to go to the port and get these, so I was going to make it a day affair. We show up. Paul actually lives quite close to the port. He's got a nice truck. We're going to pick them all up, bring them all to FedEx, Post Office, DHL, so on and so forth, rather than having to bring them all back to the store, find space for them, only to have to ship them back out later. So I did a pre-order, and I had them at about $550, which meant that we were going to make a profit of somewhere around $30 to $70 each, depending on where you live, maybe a little less if you lived all the way in California, because we're shipping a heavy item, so we were giving free shipping. The further you are away, the more money we pay. So the profit was going to be based on the amount of distance. And when you get an $1,100 added, you're adding about $100 or so to the cost of each one, which makes me somewhat biased and somewhat salty. And one of the things that bothers me above all is the lack of concern people are putting towards the fact that tools being expensive is going to affect job creation in America. I started off in this business very broke and very destitute, and I climbed my way out of it as ambitiously as I could, and I'm fully aware of exactly how much more difficult it is to do your job, to service customers, when there's even a $100 difference, much less a $1,000 or a $2,000 difference, and getting the tools that you need to start offering the services that have the higher profit margins that allow you to develop a name for yourself, make more money, and help more people. I'm fully aware of that, and when people don't look at the entire picture, they're focusing solely on the manufacturing side, not on how this affects the service side. I think that they're missing out on a big part of the picture. And admittedly, yes, I am quite salty that while I'm not allowed to have different prices on my own website and then just charge the customer the highest one, the government is allowed to do that. And I think that's a point, regardless of whether you are conservative, libertarian, liberal, pro-protectionism, anti-protectionism. You can look at this and say, that's BS. The price that's listed on the website should be the price that you pay. Above all, when I was going through that community post, it really made me sad and bothered me where it wasn't the insults, it was how the insults were lobbed. It was how, when people read one thing, they made a bunch of assumptions. They weren't just jumping to conclusions. They were jumping to space regarding everything from my political views, how I think, who I think should have a job, who I vote for, this, that, and the other, based on a very small piece of information. If you notice that in that post, I did not, I wasn't calling people, we weren't using words like soy boy, Nazi, or libtard, or any crap like that. I was simply discussing how a policy affected me in a polite and cordial manner. And the fact that we're not able to have those discussions anymore, I think, is pretty sad and telling. And it was also something that came up in another video that I did recently from the other side, where I had said this person said something I found to be silly, this other person said something I found to be silly, and the amount of people typing, I can't believe you're quite. It's like, wow, just how are we supposed to have conversations about things? One of the things I talk about regularly on this channel is being a fanboy. I don't think that you should be a fanboy of any company. When Apple does something stupid, I rip them for it. When Lenovo does something stupid, I'll rip them for it and not buy their product. And when Samsung does something stupid, I make a video about it, I rip them, and I don't buy their product. I am not a fanboy of any individual company. Rather, I am a fan of products that do what I want them to do and live up to the ideals that I want them to live up to. And the same is true when it comes to politicians. I am not a fanboy of any individual particular politician or party. I have a particular set of ideas, I have a particular way that I view the world, I have a particular set of ethics and morals, and I happen to have my particular set of viewpoints, and that is going to be my particular set of viewpoints regardless of this whole, I find it silly that people are doing this with views where it's like, grab a clipboard, and you grab a clipboard, and there's 30 little check boxes, and you just check, and I agree with this, I agree with this, I agree with that. No, that's not the way it's supposed to be. I don't want fans. I don't want, because a lot of people are saying, I used to be a fan of you, I used to support you, and now I don't want fans. I don't want supporters. I want viewers that think critically about ideas, that when presented with something, can engage and have a discussion about it in a normal fashion. People who are not ideologically possessed, whether we're talking about a specific politician, a specific political party, or an Apple product. And a lot of the same crap that I criticize, people that will defend Apple regardless of the things that they do wrong, or who are just completely incapable of engaging in a discussion on a design flaw with a product, that same exact mentality seemed to come out in my community comment section when it came with engaging with how a specific policy affected my particular business. And I am aware of the fact that when you turn on the news, when you go outside, when you go anywhere nowadays, you are confronted with a lot of information on how you are a piece of shit or an awful human being because you believe X or you believe Y. Depending on the channel you turn on, you may be on the side of the heroes, or you may be on the sides of the evil. Depends on what channel you turn on, depends what publication you read, depends on what website you go to. I fully understand why people turn on their defensiveness, but the reality is, if in my community comment section where I try my best to treat people with respect and engage with ideas in kind, if this is where we're going with it, then where are we supposed to have conversations? Where can we have policy discussions? Where can we discuss how things actually affect us? And how are we supposed to talk when talking about how things affect us? When it comes to my speech or what I say, who is in the White House, who is the congressperson, who is my senator, assembly person, or city council person, doesn't matter to me. It matters to me in terms of the policies that they make, but in terms of my speech or how I conduct myself, it doesn't matter to me. I don't care if the person is the party that I don't want there, the party I do want there, the person I do want there, the person I don't want there, the ideas I do want there, or the ideas that I don't want there. What matters at the end of the day is how their policies affect me. And I'm not going to silence myself in regards to how an individual's policies, or how an administration's policies, or how an office's policies affect me simply because of who happens to be there. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who made this policy, doesn't matter who added this tariff, it doesn't matter who coded that website. I don't care if it's Obama, if it's Bush, if it's Trump, if it's Tulsi Gabbard, if it's Larry Sharpe. It doesn't matter. I'm going to talk about it regardless of who it is, because it affects me. And that's how it should be for everybody else. It shouldn't be, I picked up the clipboard that just so happens to have all the beliefs that my party has, and this is my team, and rah, 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 I'm always going to cheer what they do, and if they do something bad, no, it's not the way it's supposed to work. It's not healthy, it's collectivist, and frankly, this is the type of stuff that I expect from people that are fanboys of Apple products. People who are defending people that are telling you that you might as well throw your money away rather than give it to Jessa to recover her data kind of thing. That's not something that I can support. Put down the clipboard and critically think about what you think about any of these ideas. It's not a collectivist thing where you pick up the clipboard, you check down the 30 beliefs, and that's it. That's who I am. I'm not defined by a label. I am what I think, I am what I do, I am what I believe, and that is not going to be defined by any individual other than myself. And that's it for today, and as always, I hope you learned something. And if you want to buy this microscope into the future, I'm charging an extra $75 for it, because, well, I just took it up the ass in the first set, and I'd really like to not do that again. I'll see you in the next one.